Good. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's online session with the title Building Resilient Urban Futures with Nature, part of the online Daring Cities 2020 conference. My name is Vasilios Latinos, and together with my colleagues Veronica Rebollo from the European Secretariat of ICLEI and Ayan Husseinova from the Daring Cities team, I will be hosting this session for you today. Before we get started, I would like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. As you can see, you have been all automatically muted. However, you will have the opportunity to submit your questions in text to today's presenters by typing your questions into the questions box of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentations that you're going to hear. We will collect all this and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's session. So after all our speakers have finished up with their presentations. You can also upvote, let's say, the other participants' questions by clicking on the like button to indicate you are also interested in having those questions asked. This function will help us address also the most voted questions first. We would also like to inform you that this webinar is being recorded and the recording file will be shared on the Daring Cities website shortly after the session. Today and for the next 1 hour, we will talk about how we can build resilience locally in our cities, making use of the power of nature and in particular, nature-based solutions and biodiversity. During the last decades, cities are definitely facing increasing environmental, social and economic challenges that together threaten the resilience of spaces, of infrastructures, and most importantly, the resilience of their own residents. On the one hand, the current COVID-19 pandemic has exposed and made even worse in some cases chronic stresses, vulnerabilities, and existing inequalities in our societies. But on the other hand, it has also revealed some useful lessons on how we can become more resilient and adaptable. And it has highlighted the importance of the use of nature for urban planning and development. Nature-based solutions have emerged as a concept for integrating ecosystem-based approaches to address societal challenges and can directly also contribute to increased urban resilience. However, the implementation is always complex given the range of ecosystem services, and also if we take into account multifunctionality and the potential trade-offs between functions and scales. During this session, we will look into the implementation of NBS and green and blue infrastructure by addressing these key trade-offs. And we will look into the role of planning with nature for addressing conflicts, inequalities, and implementation challenges. Our agenda for today includes 3 presentations from 3 pioneer cities when it comes to using nature for building resilience from Europe, Africa, and North America. So I would ask all the participants to please hold your questions until the Q&A session, post everything in the Q&A box. And after we have heard the presentations from all our speakers, we will try to address as many questions as possible. Our first speaker today is Mayor Wade Troxell, City of Fort Collins, United States of America. Thank you, Mayor Troxell, and we're looking forward to your presentation. Our second speaker is Peter Vos, from the sustainability expert from the city of Genk in Belgium. And the third speaker is the mayor of Vincent Paul de Kayanya from the city of Entebbe in Uganda. Thank you all for being here with us. And in between the presentations also, I would like to thank my colleague Ingrid Kotsia, senior manager in our ICLEI Africa Secretariat, who will also comment on the presentations and ask some initial questions to all our speakers based on her long experience with NBS and biodiversity in African cities. And with this, I would like to hand on to Mayor Troxell from the city of Fort Collins. Mayor, the floor is yours. You can also share your screen. I think you have already done that, so great.
Thank you, Vasilios, and thank you all. And it's a real honor for me to be with you today. I'm Mayor Wade Troxell. I'm the mayor of the city of Fort Collins, Colorado. I've been the mayor the last 6 years, and I've been on the city council for the last 14 years. And I also am on the faculty at Colorado State University. Next slide, please. Where is Fort Collins, Colorado? Fort Collins is located along the Rocky Mountains in the United States. Colorado was founded as a state in 1876, and Fort Collins was founded in 1864. So it was actually founded before Colorado became a state. It's located in the northern part of Colorado, along what we call the Front Range, and that's where we're north of Denver, Colorado, by 60 miles, and we're close to Cheyenne, Wyoming. We're, as I mentioned, along the edge of the Rocky Mountains, where you can see the mountains meets the Great Plains of the United States. Next slide, please. Just to put our ecosystem into perspective, um, Fort Collins lies in a semi-arid environment. So we get about 14 inches of rain or the equivalent from snow a year. And with that, we're very dependent upon winter snowstorms and snowpack in the mountains, as well as spring snows. And in Fort Collins is in three watersheds, principally the Cache La Poudre River. Cache La Poudre indicates our French influence, as it was part of the Louisiana Purchase, and Cache La Poudre is where the gunpowder was hidden. And so we have a number of streams and creeks and irrigation ditches. We have a very complex irrigation system that was built in the late 1800s throughout what is now our city. In 1905, the Poudre River was described as one of the most working rivers in the United States because of its use for diversions for agriculture at the time. And so these arteries provide now, these irrigation ditches provide important urban habitat support for biodiversity throughout our community. It also serves as important places for just respite and recreation. And provides its own set of challenges as well as constraints as it relates to our growing city. Next slide, please. As you can see, our transition as a community, it has grown. For example, in my lifetime, Fort Collins is my hometown. So Fort Collins has grown 8.5 times in my lifetime. And it's projected to grow another 70 to 80,000 people in the next 30 years. So we've had a growth as a constant throughout many years in Fort Collins. We also have an ethos of that we're a plan and do city. We have planning exercises that where we plan as to where we want to go as a city, a clear vector on the direction we're going, but also we implement those plans. In my experiences, some cities plan, but other cities don't plan. Other cities do, but don't plan. So we like to say that we're a plan and do city. And 2020 is an opportunity to manage through these unfamiliar circumstances, including the global pandemic as well as climate change. And right now we're experiencing wildfires in our watershed in the mountains. So all these are the backdrop for managing resilience. So increasing resilience in our green infrastructure and providing easy access to natural spaces is an important part of our plan and do culture. Um, so one of the things that we view as fundamental is nature as an integrator throughout our community. And in building resiliency, let me give an example. 50 years ago, our city council voted to underground our electric power system. So 99.9% of our electric system is all undergrounded. That not only provides resilient and robust power, but it also provides beautiful view sheds and other things that takes out the urban clutter throughout our community. So that's an example of the plan and do within our community. And, and we're also very conscious of conserving our critical water resources in a semi-arid environment, managing our stormwater where we can get large quantities of either snow or rain at a particular time and be able to manage that to minimize property damage and safety of our residents. while also decreasing our urban heat island and increasing the biodiversity throughout our community and maintaining our park system. And this is all embodied within our community values, increasing our access to nature. Next slide, please. As you can see here, a common strategy for our community is at the core of our community, integrating across our city organization, where it's our parks and park planning, our cultural resources, whether it's our community development in our neighborhoods, or whether it's our natural areas or our sustainability services or our water utilities. We're actively and consistently trying to break down the silos. And we do this through collaboration. We build this into our budgeting system as well as our engagement with our community. We view our community as being co-creators with us, the city government, in building a better community. And it's through that co-creation where we engage all within our community. And this is fundamental to our city structure. For example, in the funding, we don't fund departments, we fund outcomes within our community. And it's through those outcomes you begin to integrate between different departments to get the outcomes that we care about. As an example, our environmental health outcome, we have 7 strategic objectives ranging from river health to water quality, to land conservation, to renewable energy, and meeting our air quality goals. So I'm going to give some examples as to how and to illustrate how we can cross the city boundaries and cross into and engage our community for collaboration. Next slide, please. Here's one example where we manage for flood events and increase neighborhood access to nature. This particular stormwater system is part of our Red Fox Meadow natural area. It has, in my lifetime, we've had 3 100-year floods, just to give you an indication of how the frequency and the severity of the events happen. Most recently in 2013, infrastructure like this one that you see here has increased the resiliency of our community, where we had a major flood through this area. And we basically avoided any flooding issues because of we have not only built stormwater, but really keep them in the natural context within our community. So this particular project showcases a collaboration between our utilities stormwater department and our city's natural areas department to apply nature-based solutions to manage stormwater runoff. And this conserves 41 acres of nature in a highly developed urban area where you can't see other than the fence and urban structure. And this also is coupled to 2 miles of accessible trails and often used as an outdoor classroom. Next slide, please. Here's an interesting project that is basically using nature-based problem solving to support recreation and integrate natural landscapes. This is Sugar Beet Park, which is a historic park where sugar beets was one of our main agricultural crops 100 years ago. And so this is right in the middle of a historic low-income neighborhood. This was an opportunity to first celebrate the rich heritage and engage with nature, and also provide places to play. We created spaces where our community can come together, while at the same time telling it's a lovely natural area. Next slide, please. Here's another project where it shows intentional planning for people in the protection of wildlife habitat. We have a number of natural habitat buffer zones around our community. In fact, we've separated from our area other communities to have this natural habitat buffer zones. Our community development has some community, our development community has been some of our biggest advocates within our community. And as a result, we consistently are voted and named as one of the top cities for livability. And just last week, the best place to live in the United States. And it's in due part to these natural habitat buffer zones where we can protect our resources, maintain our wildlife corridors, and it's a collaborative approach to community building, reaching across many departments within our city as well as throughout our community with the development community. The result is we maintain features that might be lost to development and in fact enhance it for the livability within our community. Next slide. Here we manage climate change impacts and empower homeowners to extend our green space as a collaborative effort. We have over 70,000 trees as in the city right away that, and so our community tree canopy is very important to our community. And this is a native environment for not only big trees that are historic within our area of the country, but also riparian zones and surrounded by prairie and that habitat. An important part of building the urban canopy for livability ecosystem services, it also allows for us to conserve our native prairie landscape. It draws on internal partnerships as well as external partnerships. Internally, we have our city forestry program and our natural areas and our nature in the city program, where every member of our community is no further from 10-minute walk to a natural area. And then also we have partners with the National Arbor Day Foundation and then homeowners throughout our community. In this case, we're showing here 225 trees are distributed and increasing the diverse urban zone, expanding our tree canopy, lowering energy costs, filtering our air and our water in the water swales, reducing our stormwater runoff and safety and protection throughout our community, and establishing green neighborhoods. Next slide, please. And here is an initiative that's it's at the early phases, but really supporting a healthy night sky and keeping our community safe. Here we have a skateboard park within our community, and our business community is a big key partner in this effort. It's a partnership with our city, our development review folks, our electric utility, and our business community. And it supports robust and a safe night across our city. Here we're able to provide for night skies while illuminating a skate park within our community and not allowing for a light to escape, utilizing technological advances. And this also provides for a healthier environment for our humans and our wildlife together. Next slide, please. Here's an example that shows decreased outdoor water demand and increased biodiversity. This is our Oak Ridge open space where community-wide water conservation efforts are illustrated. In it, with a growing population and higher water demand and water being a limited resources, we can open base turf conversions. So basically where we've had bluegrass, we can convert it to more drought tolerant native grasses. And this is a partnership with our water utility, our natural areas and nature in the cities organization, and also with our community members. And this project details converting large areas from high water usage to turf grass to drought tolerant native grasses, developing pollinator gardens and adding beauty and habitat in these areas. And what we've resulted in providing is decreased the community water demands, which we've been decreasing regularly for about the last 20 years, as well as supporting healthy urban populations for birds and butterflies. Next slide, please. And finally, what's next for Fort Collins? Well, Fort Collins strives to be a community leader. I think one of the things that challenges all of us is average thinking. And we should strive for these kinds of efforts that make our communities better for not only our citizens today, but well into the future. And flipping the engagement model to meet our residents where they are. And always remaining curious. We're open to new opportunities and taking a systems view and perspective, and building a more robust environment that's also adaptable, and seeking out new and creative ways, even in these times of unfamiliar solutions. And everyone in our community as a co-creator, that we can all come together and integrate nature throughout our city. With that, I thank you so much, and I look forward to any questions you might have. And I'm very honored to be with you here today. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mayor Troxel, for this very interesting presentation. Very good to hear that you're also like referring to the whole community as co-creators for nature-based solutions and for building resilience with nature. I would like to hand over to Ingrid. Ingrid, any initial observations or questions for the Mayor?
Yes, I mean, I think it's really impressive to hear the level of innovation. And what really impresses me is how central nature as an integrator. I think that's the term that you used. You know, it's coming from somebody who works in the nature space predominantly. I find that very encouraging, and I wonder what it was that drove you as the mayor of your city to go for that approach as opposed to something else.
Well, I think it's been an active conversation in our community for 30, 40 years about how the nature is so important, and then the pressures of development. And I think dealing with those natural tensions that we have within our community and being proactive and thinking about them not as an either or, but as an and bringing those together and actually featuring nature as it makes a desirable place to live, and we can integrate things in ways that we may not have thought about before.
Great. And what I also liked is how you show the spin-offs also to the community, to the people living there. So it's not just an infrastructure or a nature or a climate benefit, but also to the people. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot to both of you. I would like now to continue. We will have more time at the end of this session for more questions, but I would like now to continue to the next presenter, who is Peter Vos, from sustainability expert from the city of Genk in Belgium. Peter, the floor is yours.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Peter. I'm from the city of Genk in Belgium. It's 8 o'clock in the evening here today. Not sure where everybody in the world is, but here it's dark already. Today, I'm going to tell you something about our nature-based solution strategy in the city of Genk and how we apply it to the steamer valley in our city. This project is partly funded by the European Commission through the Connecting Nature project that is funded by the Horizon 2020 program of the Commission. A little bit more information on Genk. Genk is it's a quite small city in the Flanders region of Belgium. We have almost 66,000 inhabitants, so it's a pretty small city also on the European scale. You can here see the location where it is. It's quite a dynamic and interesting city in the sense that at the same time, Genk is the greenest city in the region of Flanders, but also the most industrialized city. So that's a little bit paradoxical. But in order to understand that, you should also understand the history of the city of Genk. And the history is almost entirely written by the mining history of the city of Genk. So about a little bit more than 100 years ago, Genk was just a small village of 1,000 inhabitants in a very green region. But then coal was discovered in the underground. And then the city exploded in 100 years' time. It is now a city. So there were 3 mining facilities on the territory of Genk. It has the coal mine industry has disappeared, but we still see the remains in our city through these old mining buildings. So that has shaped the history of Genk and is also shaping the future. And in order to better understand that, you should also understand that the city of Genk has a lot of very vibrant and diverse community, because due to the mining industry, a lot of migrant workers from all over Europe and even further in the world came to Genk in order to work in the mines. And we still have a very diverse community. I think about 55% of the people in Genk has a background that's different than an only Belgian background. So our nature-based solution strategy, one of the flagship project of our nature-based solution strategy is the redevelopment of the Steamer Valley. And the Steamer Valley, you can see it here in this picture. It's a valley that's formed by a small river, the Steamer River, that flows from the northeast of our city through the heart of our city and a lot of different neighborhoods and districts to the southwest of the city. Over the years, over the last decades, the city has a bit turned its back to the river, so it's now a bit of an abandoned valley. But because due to its location, we believe it has the potential to really be a beating heart of the city, a valley that gives life to the city. Because due to this potential, we believe that it can be the driver for a lot of changes in our city. It can be a driver for really a spatial transformation, this valley, but also for a lot of other challenges that we are facing. For example, we face, especially now in this COVID-19 crisis, we feel there's a lot of need for social cohesion, also due to our diversity and the different communities that we have. Social cohesion is a big challenge for us. So we believe there's potential also to work on this transformation with this project. Also the economic transformation, we are still facing the closure of the mines and also the closing of a large car manufacturing factory that has closed a couple of years ago. So we face a lot of economic challenges. And of course, as most of the cities in our region, and I believe in the world, we're also facing the climate change challenge and the ecologic challenge that's going with it. So the challenges, it's both on, or as well on ecologic, economic and social, as a social side. So we believe that if we really want to pursue an ecologic, social and economic value proposition, that nature-based solutions could offer a good solution strategy in order to really tackle these problems. That's why we came to a strategy that initially started with a spatial transformation strategy, where we designed a master plan in a co-creative way in which we would like to transform our Steamer Valley in some kind of a, you could say, a longitudinal central park for the city of Genk, with different sections with all different purposes that we co-create with the people living in these sections, and where we would like to transform the neighborhood there. One of the really transformative changes that we would like to introduce with this project, it's a transformation of the water system. Because if you look to these neighborhoods that are also all part of the valley, these neighborhoods are developed in such a way, or designed in such a way, that all stormwater falling out of the sky is flowing away very quickly through the sewage system. But this has a lot of disadvantages for drought in our city, also for water quality problems. So we really would like to use this project as a transformation from gray solutions to nature-based solutions, in which we invest in decentral and localized infiltration of water, circular reuse of water, rather than a fast runoff of all the valuable water that falls in our city. So that's one of the main drivers of this project. In that sense, we would like to give space to green and blue solutions. So the current situation, we would like to transform to these kind of situations. And one of the things that has already been implemented is, for example, this park at one side of this Steamer Valley, where you can see that there is indeed, we have given space for blue or for water here in this area. We've also provided recreational solutions combined with green and blue, but there's also, we made new allotment gardens where people can garden in their backyard. But then, we embraced the concept of nature-based solutions. We initially invested a lot in spatial transformations, but because nature-based solutions has not only a value proposition on ecological, so it's not only about planting new trees or planting green solutions, we also would like to have a socio-economic transformation, so really make a difference on social issues and economical issues. And we were thinking, can we just hope for it by spatially transforming our city? Or are these co-benefits just coming by themselves? Or should we also try to come up with solutions in order to boost these socio-economic transformation? And we thought, yeah, we actually should do. We should not just wait for them and hope for them, but we should really design solutions on socio-economic transformation related to nature-based solutions. That's why we came up with the concept of steamer deals. We have been working on it for, I would say, 1.5 years now. So it's also fully operational by now. And what's a steamer deal? A steamer deal, it's kind of a deal that we close with everybody who's interested to also contribute to the objectives of our steamer redevelopment program. So it can be a steamer deal with an individual citizen, but it can also deal with a company or with a group of citizens, with organizations. And if these people and we, the city of Genk, commit to collaboratively pursuing both the objective of the city and the steamer program, but also the objectives of the people we are closing a deal with, then we call it a steamer deal, and we see how we can support these people that we are closing a deal with. For example, we can give them some financial support, but we can also give them some logistics support, we can give them access to our network, we can bring them in contact with other people. And an example of such a deal that we've closed is, for example, the people that you see here. They're all members of an organization that's called The Start. And it's an organization that works with people with a psychosocial vulnerability. And through this deal, we brought them in contact with another NGO that's working on the nature conservation in the Steamer Valley. And now they basically are responsible for part of the Steamer Valley, for part of the nature reserve in the Steamer Valley. And they are doing the nature management in this area, which gives them a meaningful occupation, but it also helps the people from the nature conservation NGO to reach their objectives. So that's an example. We currently have almost 35 steamer deals that we have closed in our Steamer Valley. Another example is for example this one. It's the steamer ice cream, in which we have in which we are collaborating with the beekeeper in the Steamer Valley, and he's giving honey to the woman from the ice cream parlor who has developed a new flavor of ice cream based upon this steamer honey. It's called steamer ice cream, and she's selling it in an ice cream parlor that's on one of the banks of the Steamer River. And that's also a steamer deal that we have closed, and that's very popular in our city. And that also has some kind of a social and also economical value for our steamer project. So in that sense, this is a bit summarized with what our ambition is. So in this Steamer Valley that's running through our city, on the one hand side, we would like to implement spatial transformations, which is a bit represented by these dots here, or these symbols here. So we do it all along the valley, but in the meantime, we also try to ignite some sparkles by closing steamer deals with people who also would like to create some value in our valley. And by that, we hope to transform this valley into a vibrant region in our city that flows through the heart of our city and gives life to our city. And that's the end of my presentation.
Thanks a lot, Peter. This was a very interesting presentation. I know I'm gonna Google about steamer deals after this meeting. Ingrid, can I hand over to you?
You're not the only one that's going to Google the steamer deals, especially that ice cream. I think that's a really novel idea. You know, and what strikes me is that the two cities, Ghent and Fort Collins, are from very different parts of the world, but and have obviously very different challenges, yet there are certain similarities. But the solutions that you come up with, I mean, both of you talked about drought and climate change impacts and that sort of thing, and using nature-based solutions, but the way in which you articulate that is so different and so unique. Just in terms of your steamer deal, which I find a really interesting concept, the notion of involving landowners or groups within a city to help the city protect and conserve is something that in South Africa is also very strong. We call it differently. We don't call it the steamer deals. I really like that deal to it. But to what extent did you involve the citizens in coming up with your initial concept, your initial plan? Was it co-produced, or was this something that was just developed at the city level? So if you could just talk to me a little bit about that, thanks.
Yeah, I think the concept of deals came also from the fact that we felt that a lot of people did feel some engagement to the valley because it's part of their neighborhood, and they were interested to contribute. But rather than have some very scattered initiatives, we thought that by somehow uniting all these different initiatives under some umbrella concept like the steamer deals would also facilitate it for us as a city to unlock even more capacity to work on this project. But because it's also, we have been running it now for 1 year, and we really feels that it comes at speed, that more people get to know this concept. And we are now even working to ideas of exploiting the potential benefits behind something like a steamer community or a steamer brand or these kind of things. But because you really can see now that all these initiatives, which if you consider them each by themselves, can look very trivial and very small. But by combining them, it gives them also a sense of community, a sense of doing things together. And we value that a lot. And because before, some people were really saying, why do you invest in this as a city? Because it's such a small, trivial initiative. And that's true if it's just one. But by the combination, we now have 35 in just 1 year. Maybe in a couple of years, we have more than 100. It's not trivial anymore. It's a very strong wave and capacity that helps us to realize our objectives in a way that we could never have done it by ourselves as a city council.
Thanks a lot. Ingrid, you wanted to add something? Okay, that's good. That's great. Thanks. Being conscious also of the time, I would like to move now to our third and last speaker, who is the Mayor Vincent Paul de Kayanja from the city of Entebbe in Uganda. Thank you, Mayor Kayanja, for being with us as well. I can also ask you to share your presentation, and we look forward to hear from you.
Thank you, moderator. And thank you, Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, all protocol observed. I'm Vincent Paul Kayanja, Mayor Entebbe Municipality in Uganda. It's a pleasure for me to join you today to speak about the resilient urban nature at the Daring Cities 2020 conference. Entebbe Municipality is so grateful to be part of the family of ICLEI. The word Entebbe means chair, and Entebbe is the location, the official location of the residence of the President of Uganda. It is located on the shores of Lake Victoria, and it is a peninsula which hosts the international airport. Lake Victoria, which we
Mayor, can you hear us? Okay, we seem that our speaker disconnected. So maybe since while we wait until he's reconnecting, we can move forward maybe with a couple of questions that we have already seen from the audience. So actually, we have maybe a question for both the speakers from Manon Gilan. What kind of KPIs have you used to measure the success in the different areas of progress that you have worked on? Maybe we can start with Mayor Troxel first.
Sure, great question. And you know, there are three goals that we're measuring progress for our nature in the city: connectivity to habitat, which we're measuring the number of projects and also locations relative to the habitat in those models. So we're looking at those. Just as I put in the question and answer, a couple of links. One is to our outcomes areas. We have 7 outcomes areas within our community: environmental health being one of them. And fortcollins.clearpointstrategy.com, you can access our outcome area and drill down to the different metrics that roll up to how are we doing in those outcomes. And then also our budgeting for outcomes, all the questions related to that, go to fcgov.com/BFO. So I think that will get to deeper answers than I could provide just right at the moment.
Thanks a lot. Peter, the same question to you.
Yeah, I have to say that we are not that experienced yet in clearly supporting our policy with KPIs. So I really find the answer that Mayor Troxel gave very inspiring, also by linking it to the budgeting for outcomes. I think that's something we can learn from, definitely. But of course, we try to also measure the success. Also, partly by the European project that we're now involved in, where we are developing actually right now a monitoring strategy based also upon KPIs on social, economic, and ecological issue. But yeah, I can go into detail, but maybe that's not the most interesting things. So I'll leave it here, because I think in relation to what Wade Troxel said, I think we still have to learn a lot about that.
Great, thanks a lot, Peter. Maybe moving back to the Mayor, to Mayor Troxel, I have another question from Kami Raimi. So the question is, how do you approach equity in access to green spaces? And how can your goals for urban greening and climate mitigation serve the general goals for social equity and vice versa?
Great question, Kemi. Thank you. The one example that I had in my presentation with regards to Sugar Beet Park was one intentional example where really bringing a natural area and looking strongly at the through the equity lens. And in this case, it was a low-income neighborhood that literally by the railroad tracks, by all these things where historically, I think, led to the disparity of different ethnic groups and so forth. And through an intentional view here of bringing nature to this component of our community, which actually has access to it, but oftentimes it was the back door instead of the front door. So actually really turning it more into the front door. And it's also, I think, and I think we're getting better at planning through looking through the equity lens. And it really, I think, ultimately starts to speak to the importance of our partnerships and flipping the engagement model, where it isn't what we just do at city government, but it's really engaging all within our community in those kinds of conversations. And that's that co-creation model, rather than just expecting the answer to come from, you know, who sits in a city government building, but the answer really lies in our community. So thank you for that question.
Thanks a lot. We have a couple of questions for Peter. So Peter, regarding the steamer deals, in the deals that have been closed already, did you have any difficulties with initiating the dialogues, or did they grow from individual ideas? This is from Avery Pullara, a question. And further, do you see this idea lasting into the future, or is it more like a short-term tool?
It's definitely, to start answering this last question, to make it a sustainable policy instrument, to call it this way. So we really would like to continue with it for a couple of years now. Do we have any difficulties with initiating dialogues? I would say no. As I said before, there were some individual initiatives that we started the dialogue with, and that went very smoothly. And even what we see now, and it's a very nice observation to see, is that in the beginning, we were always part of the dialogue when closing new deals, but now we see that people we have a deal with start to go in dialogue with other people about steamer deals without us being involved. So you could say it's a steamer deal of second degree somehow. But it also means that it's something we cannot control anymore in the same way. So we are now trying to see how we can govern this concept of steamer deals, although we do not have control, because we of course like it if it spreads out like an oil stain, how we call it. So so yeah, it's not a difficulty with initiating dialogues. It goes very good.
Mm-hmm. Thanks a lot, Peter. We have also another question for you from Nick Pazzini. Do you expect financial returns from optimized water management when it comes to quality and quantity? And also, there's a question here about budget, I think. How much did you invest in optimizing drainage within the valley?
Okay, so that's a very important point, because there indeed is a business model behind this water management, because if you would do the business as usual solution, which is investing more in sewage systems, that's going to cost a lot of money. So by investing in nature-based solutions, you save this amount of money. So there is potential. I have to say we haven't started implemented it yet. So we are now about to start the first pilot project in the coming months. So it's not something that has already been accomplished yet. So it's fully emerging and fully in development. But we really believe there is a potential in finding good business models. And also it's a good way to really pursue transformative change, because what we see now is that the entire system is now designed for putting more sewage pipes in the ground. So it's the way the regional government is organized, it's the way the funding channels are organized, it's the way how the responsibilities are divided among different partners. So, and in order to now start from a new paradigm, this nature-based solutions paradigm, it needs also to change this, or to transform the system that's behind it. And that's also what Mayor Troxel said. You really need to collaborate a lot with different layers. It's with the regional government, it's with the provincial government, it's with the private sector, it's with the citizens, because it's an entirely new model. But we are hopeful, because indeed there's also like financial returns from it. And if you have financial returns, it means that there is a viable business model. And if you have a viable business model, it's something that we believe you can really come to a sustainable solution in time.
Great, thanks a lot, Peter. Ingrid, anything from your side for our two speakers?
Sorry, no, I mean, I was just thinking that I think it's really interesting to see how in cities where you have either a situation that a city is increasing rapidly because of urban population growth, or where the nature of cities, the city has changed because of change in the local economy. For example, in Genk, where you used to have a very strong industrial sort of background, how nature and designing with nature and working with nature and using nature-based solutions as your go-to approach in dealing with your various challenges can actually come up with solutions that are not just very practicable, but also, as we see, bring people and community together. But clearly also to me, it's, you know, just looking at it from an outsider perspective, the sort of benefit that you get in terms of quality of life and quality of the environment and the aesthetic feel of the city, the sense of place, is definitely much better. And I know, I mean, it's obviously these programs haven't been in place for decades, but I'm sure that you're going to find that there are going to be economic benefits as well, particularly as far as maintenance is concerned, whereas these green solutions might be relatively expensive to implement now because the technology is still new and it's not, you know, the economies of scale might be different. I do think that certainly in the long run, because nature maintains itself if you allow it to, I think that there would be gains from that perspective too. And I would like to just find out from our two panelists whether they have any sort of ideas or experience, or they're picking up any trends in that respect.
You know, I think Ingrid and Peter make great points about the infrastructure, and it begins to transition. I know of specific examples here in stormwater, for example, where we're not putting necessarily pipes in the ground, but through a natural area and water retention swales and things like that, where the water treatment is done in a natural way and it's able to have capacity to handle stormwater runoff instead of diverting it away and to our river right away. It's one that's actually captured, and then you have these multiple uses for the habitat and beauty and nature in the city and those sorts of things. And you know, I think you know, I think a lot of times it's breaking down the silos, zooming out and thinking about it from a systems perspective. And you get all these leveraging points that you don't have within the silo. And then, you know, and Peter brings up a great point too about how cost structures work historically and so forth. How do you fund these? And you know, within your own boundaries, you can do it. But when you start crossing boundaries, and we all know that, you know, what we're talking about don't have boundaries. And so that, you know, that's why working together is so important as well. So great points. And I think you gain a lot of economies through this integration if you think about it from a systems perspective.
Great. Thanks a lot to both of you. There is one last question from Jana Peruzzo regarding the involvement of university and schools in process of innovation in both cities on NBS. And actually, this is something that I would be also interested to know, because there's recently definitely a very big effort about investing in developing principles, guidelines for global ecosystem management initiatives that fall within NBS. And I would like also to hear if, of course, Peter mentioned already the Connecting Nature project, but I would like to hear if how the city is collaborating with research institutes in both cases.
You know, from my perspective, I think it's critical. You know, what we've found is in Colorado State University, we have world-renowned experts in a lot of different of these areas, and oftentimes they're known around the world, but they're not even known in their own town. And so by engaging with the universities and partnering and doing demonstration projects and leveraging that expertise, we can actually become a leader to demonstrate some of these methods that historically haven't been as well known. And with that, we can showcase together. And so I think with the universities and our communities, if we're, instead of just coexisting, if we can become aligned together on our strategic outcomes together, we all win that way. And so I think that's something that we should be doing as a matter of practice for the betterment of not only what happens within the cities, but also furthering the research by doing that embedded research within our own communities.
Yeah, I totally agree with this point. And I also think in our project, we have a lot of collaborations, for example, with the Connecting Nature project, in which we have very strong partners from across Europe on innovation and financing, innovation in business models, innovation in transitional governance, innovation in monitoring, innovation in the technical part of the nature-based solutions. But I think it indeed goes, because you could say they're not really local partners because they are spread across Europe. So that's why we also invest a lot of time in partnerships with local universities or local academic institutes. Because indeed, it also gives them an opportunity or a chance, and more they're really willing to do it, to create impact on their local scale as well in their community. For example, there's a local university that started a citizen science project on water quality in our Steamer Valley. So that's a collaboration between the university, our own citizens, and the city of Genk, which of course gives a lot creates a lot of value in our community, and we have a lot of these kind of partnerships with local universities on various topics related to nature-based solutions.
Great, thank you. Ingrid, anything last from your side?
Yes, just a last thing. And I mean, it's really sorry that we lost our mayor from Entebbe, because I think he would have had some really interesting perspectives. And I can't speak on his behalf. But one thing that I can say is in relation to this last topic around engaging or partnering or collaborating with research institutions, universities, citizen science, etc. That is something that I know that has happened a lot in Entebbe, and they've come up with some very innovative approaches to spatial planning and sort of alternative planning approaches, concepts like scenario planning, urban tinkering, reblocking, etc., and using these and integrating these and coming up with innovative solutions for dealing with practical on-the-ground situations, whether these are related to water quality or water security, flooding, heat islands, etc. So I think that issue of partnership with the knowledge pool out there, and I mean, in the case of Entebbe, it's not just within the region, but certainly also north-south, with the sort of donor countries, etc. So I think that's also another important point to make.
Great, thanks a lot, Ingrid. Being conscious of the time, and it's getting quite late in some parts of the world at the moment. And I see that there are no more questions, which means that concludes our webinar. We would like to thank all of our speakers for sharing their experiences and points of view, and all of you for attending and engaging with us in the discussion. On behalf of ICLEI and the Daring Cities team and all our speakers, thank you a lot for joining us today. We're going to follow up with the mayor of Entebbe and potentially ask if we can have a recording of his presentation so that we can share also with you. Yeah, that's it from our side. And thanks a lot. Have a great rest of your day.